You're bringing up some really interesting ideas about when you're talking about private-public partnerships. What would you envision? What would be some of the ideals that you'd like to see happening?
Well, first, let's take affordable housing. I'd like to see some sort of plan if the town could acquire property or work directly with specific developers to have more housing that meets the affordable test. Some people in town have expressed their wary of who might occupy that affordable housing, and they've confused affordable housing with I think it's Section 8 housing, which is far from being the same thing. I don't know if you're aware of the cost of an affordable apartment in one of the apartment buildings in Wilton, but it's if you use standard ratios to look at the affordability. A family has to probably make 150 to $200,000 a year to live in such an affordable apartment. So I'd like to see people actually meet and propose whether, a private developer along with the town would acquire space or land or existing buildings and do something about it, because we'll never catch up as the statute is currently written, given the number of affordable units that we have. Um, and I do personally think it's very important that the people who support Wilton and whether they are police, fire, administrative staff, have an opportunity to be part of the community that they are working in. So that would be one thing, and that's been successfully done in some of our neighboring towns. So the first thing is addressing affordability. The second thing is I'd like a real plan to be done which actually looks at the economic impact of these decisions. I've started working on that on my own, which is actually looking at what the revenue impact is of development and actually what the cost impacts are. But I have asked the members of our Board of Selectmen several times if they would take this on as a project, and I have so far not succeeded in being a lonely voice from little old planning and zoning in terms of getting people interested in that. At the same time, being kind of confused about the whole CFO and comptroller and all those issues and will themselves. Can you imagine me going to a board meeting and saying, "Oh, well, the kinds of things that went on in Wilton went on in one of our companies." It's a board meeting I wouldn't want to have. Um, so that's one of the things I'd like to see. I'd like to see people actually putting some planning into the budgeting and those kinds of things. And the third thing is I'd like to understand what we're going to do on a broader basis to deal with just some of the realities in Wilton. I mean, pretending things will happen, certain things will happen, won't make them happen. I mean, Wilton, the transportation from Wilton to other places in Connecticut or New York City is not great. So we just have to accept that and deal with that impacts the kind of town that we live in. Last time I checked, Amazon isn't going away. So the effect of that on retail in a town like Wilton. I don't have meetings on planning and zoning where I talk about what is a vibrant town center, what is vibrant for Georgetown, what is vibrant for Cannondale, and at least some discussion about it might get us some direction. And then the last thing is I would like to look at how do we actually work as a town to attract developers and builders who are interested in the kinds of things that the town is interested in. I don't see an active way of that. I don't see an active effort that is happening under today's issues. And let's go back to what I said at the beginning. Not talking about it publicly is certainly not going to solve any of those problems or even address those problems. Look, we can have those meetings and have that engagement and have that input, and the vast majority of people could believe things that are diametrically opposed to what I believe. Okay? but at least we had engagement and did something, okay, in order to draw the conclusions that we have instead of doing nothing. And it's sort of like we're just letting things happen to us, not proactively trying to make anything happen. Look, we're not spending the money on these developments. The developer is spending the money. Give you an example of a question. Go out and ask the average person who's saying something about planning and zoning if they think that the person who is developing a property has actually bought the property. The majority of them will say absolutely, at least the ones I've talked to, which is a unscientific poll of not the majority. But in reality, that's not true. They have some contract that says they will have a right to buy the property if it passes planning and zoning. It's simple things like that.